Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and you are legally allowed to live anywhere in 27 countries. You can work without anyone's permission. You can move your family. You can buy property. You can access the same healthcare, education, and social systems that citizens enjoy. You cannot be deported. You do not need to renew anything, ask anyone, or justify your presence to anyone. You are simply there. Permanently. That is what EU permanent residency actually gives you. And most people have no idea how achievable it actually is in 2026. I want to be very upfront with you before we go any further. This video is not about shortcuts that do not exist. It is not about loopholes or gray areas. And it is not a video that ends with "but it depends on your situation, consult a lawyer," and gives you nothing concrete. What this video is the most complete, honest, and specific breakdown of the real pathways to EU permanent residency available to non-EU citizens right now, in 2026. Pathways with exact timelines, exact income requirements, exact costs, and the exact steps to get started today. Here is what I am going to walk you through. There are essentially 5 types of people who want EU permanent residency. The highly skilled professional with a job offer. The remote worker or digital nomad earning income online. The financially independent person. The retiree, the investor, the passive income earner. The person willing to invest capital directly. And the person who does not have any of the above but is willing to take a longer, slower, more patient route through the system. Every single one of those people has a viable pathway to EU permanent residency. And by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly which one applies to you. Let us start. Welcome to the channel. Before we get into the pathways, let me give you the context that makes everything else make sense, because understanding how the EU residency system actually works is what separates people who successfully navigate it from people who spend years confused and stalled. The European Union has 27 member states. Each member state has its own national immigration system, meaning the rules for getting a residence permit in Germany are different from those in Portugal, which are different from those in Malta, which are different from those in Greece. There is no single EU visa that you apply for through some central authority. You apply to a specific country, live there under that country's rules, and over time, typically 5 years for most pathways, though some are significantly faster, you can qualify for either permanent residency in that specific country, or a special EU-wide status called the EU Long-Term Resident Permit, which provides the closest thing to permanent freedom of movement across the entire bloc. This is the key thing to understand going in. You are choosing a country first, then a pathway within that country. And the right combination of country and pathway for you depends on your specific situation, your profession, your income, your capital, your timeline, and how you want to live. This video is going to walk you through both dimensions, the pathways and the countries, so you can identify your specific combination clearly. One more thing before we start. I am going to recommend consulting an immigration attorney for any application you decide to proceed with. That is not a cop-out, it is honest advice. Immigration law changes. Individual circumstances vary. A professional who knows your specific case will always serve you better than any YouTube video. What this video does is give you the knowledge foundation so that when you do consult a professional, you already understand the landscape and can ask the right questions. Section 1. Understanding the difference between temporary residence, permanent residence, and citizenship. This is worth spending time on because the terminology confuses a significant number of people and understanding it correctly shapes everything that follows. Temporary Residence Permit, TRP. A temporary residence permit is typically your first legal status in an EU country as a non-EU national. It grants you the right to live in that specific country for a defined period, usually 1 to 5 years, and to work, study, or carry out business activities depending on the specific permit type. A TRP must be renewed periodically, and your continued right to stay depends on you continuing to meet the conditions under which it was granted. Permanent residence, PR. Permanent residence is a fundamentally different legal status. It grants you the right to live and work in a country indefinitely, without needing to renew and without needing to continue meeting the same income or employment conditions that got you in the door initially. In most EU countries, you become eligible to apply for PR after 5 continuous years of legal residence under a temporary permit. Some pathways, notably Germany's EU Blue Card route, allow you to reach PR significantly faster than 5 years. PR is the goal we are working toward throughout this video. EU long-term residency, the EU-wide status. The EU Long-Term Resident Directive provides a standardized EU-wide permanent resident status that most non-EU nationals can apply for after 5 years of legal residence in any EU member state. This status gives you the right to move to another EU country to live, work, or study there under simplified conditions, making it significantly more powerful than national PR alone. This is the ultimate goal for most people pursuing EU residency long-term. Citizenship. Citizenship is the final stage, a passport and full political rights, including the right to vote. Most EU countries require somewhere between 5 and 10 years of legal residence before you can naturalize, though investment programs can sometimes shorten this timeline. Citizenship is beyond the scope of this video. We are focused specifically on getting you to permanent residency, which is the critical first milestone. Before I get into the specific pathways, I want to flag something that changed specifically in 2026 and that significantly affects the work-based routes to EU residency. Directive EU 2024-1233, commonly known as the Revised Single Permit Directive, entered into force in May 2024 and EU member states were required to transpose the new rules into national law by May 21, 2026. This directive covers the combined work and residence permit system that most non-EU workers use when taking employment in EU countries, and the changes it introduces are meaningful. The key changes include significantly shorter processing times for work and residence permit applications across member states. Improved rights for workers already residing in an EU country, including the right to change employers more freely than was previously permitted. Simplified application procedures across the board. And importantly, improved pathways for resident status progression, making the movement from temporary work permit to permanent residency more predictable and better protected for applicants with stable income and integration track records. What this practically means for you in 2026 is that the work-based pathways into EU permanent residency are now more structured, more predictable, and in several countries, faster than they were even 1 or 2 years ago. This is genuinely good news for skilled workers considering the EU route. If you are a highly skilled professional, meaning you hold a university degree and can secure a job offer meeting the salary threshold, Germany's EU Blue Card is almost certainly the fastest legitimate pathway to EU permanent residency available to any non-EU citizen anywhere in the world right now. Let me put the headline number front and center. Germany's EU Blue Card can get you to permanent residency in just 21 months. Not 5 years. Not 3 years. 21 months. That is the fastest PR pathway in any major economy in the world, including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, or the United States. Here is how it works. What the EU Blue Card is. The EU Blue Card is a residence and work permit specifically for highly qualified professionals from outside the EU. It was established by EU Directive and is available across multiple EU member states. But Germany issues far more EU Blue Cards than any other EU country and offers the fastest PR pathway for Blue Card holders, which is why we are focusing on Germany specifically here. The Blue Card is not just a work permit, it is a combined residence and work permit that comes with exceptional additional benefits. Your spouse receives full work authorization automatically with no separate work permit required. Your minor children can attend German public schools free of charge. Family reunification is possible from day one. And perhaps most significantly, after spending 12 months as a Blue Card holder in Germany, you can apply for an EU Blue Card in another EU member state, and your time in Germany counts toward the EU-wide long-term resident status. The requirements. To qualify for the Germany EU Blue Card in 2026, you need 3 things. A recognized university degree or equivalent qualification. A job offer from a German employer. and a salary meeting the applicable threshold. The 2026 salary thresholds are €50,700 per year for general occupations, €45,934 per year for shortage occupations and IT professionals. These thresholds are updated annually. Only fixed gross salary counts. Bonuses and commissions do not count toward the threshold. Your university degree must be formally recognized in Germany. The first step is checking the ANABIN database, the official German database of internationally recognized degrees, to see whether your institution and qualification are listed. If your degree is not in ANABIN, the ZAB evaluation process, through Germany's Central Office for Foreign Education, can typically assess it within 2 to 3 months. The PR timeline. Here is the timeline in detail, because this is the most important part. After 33 months as an EU Blue Card holder in Germany, you can apply for permanent residency, the Niederlassungserlaubnis, under the standard route. That is the baseline. But if you have German language skills at B1 level, which is a genuine conversational intermediate level, achievable with 6 to 12 months of focused study, you can apply for permanent residency after just 21 months. That is your fastest route. And for anyone who wants to start even earlier, there is an accelerated route for those with A1 German, complete beginner level, that allows PR application after 27 months. To compare these numbers against other countries, Canada's express entry from profile creation to permanent residency typically takes 5 to 8 months from invitation to apply, but getting the invitation itself can take much longer. Australia's skilled independent visa processes in roughly 8 months. The UK's skilled worker visa leads to indefinite leave to remain after 5 years. None of these compare to Germany's 21-month blue card route for speed of reaching permanent status. The costs. Germany's EU blue card is also the cheapest path to permanent residence in a major economy by government fee. The total government application fees are approximately €175, which is extraordinarily low compared to Canada at approximately $1,525 Canadian dollars, the UK at £819 to £1,618, or Australia at $4,910 Australian dollars. The practical steps. Step 1. Get a job offer from a German employer meeting the salary threshold. This is both the prerequisite and typically the biggest practical challenge. Job hunting from abroad for Germany-based positions requires a structured approach, using platforms like LinkedIn, Xing, Germany's professional network, the Federal Employment Agency's job portal, and direct company career pages. Reaching out directly to hiring managers is significantly more effective than submitting applications into large applicant tracking systems. Step 2. Have your degree recognized through the ANABIN database or ZAB evaluation. Start this process immediately, ideally before you even begin job hunting, so the recognition is in hand by the time you receive a job offer. Step 3. Apply for your blue card at the German embassy or consulate in your home country once you have your job offer and degree recognition. Bring your employment contract, degree recognition letter, valid passport, biometric photos, and proof of health insurance. Step 4. Once in Germany, register at the Bürgeramt within 2 weeks of arrival and collect your residence title card from the immigration office within 3 months. Step 5. Begin German language study from day 1. The difference between PR at 21 months and Prairie at 33 months is entirely determined by whether you achieve B1 German. Start immediately. Step 6. After 21 months of continuous residence with blue card status and B1 German proficiency demonstrated, apply for permanent residency at your local Ausländerbehörde, the immigration office. The honest trade-offs. Germany requires learning German to unlock the fastest PR pathway, and while German is a learnable language with genuine commitment, it is not trivial. Embassy appointment wait times in some countries are currently significant, 3 or more weeks in some cases. And German housing in major cities like Munich, Frankfurt, Hamburg, and Berlin is expensive and competitive. Plan your housing carefully and expect to use temporary furnished accommodation for the first 1 to 2 months while you establish yourself. Pathway 2. Portugal D7 Visa. If you do not have a European job offer, if you are a freelancer, a remote worker, a retiree, someone living from investment income, a digital nomad, or simply someone whose income comes from outside the EU, Portugal's D7 visa is consistently ranked as the most accessible and most practical EU residency pathway available to you in 2026. What the D7 visa is. The D7 is Portugal's passive income and financially independent person visa. It is designed for non-EU citizens who have stable, regular income from sources outside Portugal, whether that is remote employment income, freelance contracts, rental income, pension payments, investment dividends, savings interest, or any combination of these. You do not need a Portuguese employer. You do not need to attend a physical office in Portugal. You need income, savings that demonstrate financial stability, and the genuine intention to actually live in Portugal. The income requirements. The minimum income threshold for the D7 is pegged to Portugal's national minimum wage. In 2026, this threshold is approximately €870 per month for the main applicant, plus 50%, approximately €435, for each additional family member. So a couple with 2 children would need to demonstrate approximately €2,175 per month in stable incoming income. This is deliberately low by design. Portugal intentionally set this threshold to make the D7 accessible to a wide range of applicants, not just the wealthy. Sources of income that qualify include remote employment income from a non-Portuguese employer, freelance or consulting income from international clients, pension or retirement income, dividend income from investments, rental income from property you own abroad, and savings, though savings alone typically need to demonstrate approximately 12 months of the minimum threshold to serve as the primary financial basis. The application process. You apply for the D7 visa at the Portuguese consulate or embassy in your home country. You submit your application with your proof of income documentation, bank statements, valid passport, criminal background check, proof of accommodation in Portugal, either a rental agreement or property purchase, and your application form. The consular processing window typically runs 6 to 14 weeks. Upon visa approval, you enter Portugal and within 4 months attend an appointment with AIMA, the Agency for Integration, Migration and Asylum, to collect your Portuguese residence card. The initial residence card carries a 2-year validity and is renewable. The PR and citizenship timeline. After 5 years of continuous legal residence in Portugal under the D7 or any other qualifying resident status, you become eligible to apply for permanent residency. You also become eligible to apply for Portuguese citizenship after 5 years, and Portuguese citizenship is an EU passport, giving you the right to live, work, and move freely anywhere in the European Union indefinitely. The combination of a relatively low income threshold, a genuine and livable destination, and one of the most accessible 5-year pathways to EU citizenship makes Portugal's D7 consistently one of the most recommended EU residency programs for people who work remotely or live from passive income. Important 2026 update on Portugal. It is important to flag a significant recent change. Portugal's Mais Habitação, more housing, legislation has significantly changed the rules for new residency applications. Applications pending as of May 18, 2026 continue to follow the prior law. For these applicants, the citizenship pathway remains at 5 years for most nationalities. However, new applications from May 19, 2026 generally fall under updated rules where the residency requirement for citizenship has been extended to 7 years for EU and CPLP, Community of Portuguese Language Countries, nationals and 10 years for most other nationalities. This is a significant change that applicants should factor into their planning timeline. Always verify the current rule applying to your specific situation with an immigration attorney. The honest trade-offs. Portugal's D7 does require you to actually live in Portugal. You must spend a minimum number of days in the country each year to maintain your resident status and continue building toward permanent residency. You cannot get a D7 visa and then continue living in your home country, returning to Portugal once a year. Genuine physical presence is required. This is not a drawback for people who actually want to live in Europe, It is simply a reality to plan around. Pathway 3, Malta Permanent Residence Program. If you have investment capital and want permanent residency in the shortest possible time through an investment route, Malta's Permanent Residence Program, the MPRP, is currently the fastest direct route to EU permanent residency available to non-EU investors, with a processing time of approximately 6 months. The critical distinction here is that Malta's MPRP grants permanent residency immediately upon approval, not after a 5-year waiting period. You apply, you are approved, and you are a Malta permanent resident for life. The PR card is renewed every 5 years as an administrative formality, but the status itself is indefinite from the moment of approval. What the investment requires. The MPRP has a multi-component contribution structure. First, a government contribution fee of €50,000 if purchasing property or €60,000 if renting. Second, a property investment requirement of either purchasing property with a minimum value of €375,000 or renting property at a minimum of €14,000 per year for at least 5 years. Third, a charitable donation of €2,000 to an approved Maltese NGO. And fourth, proof of assets of at least €500,000, of which €150,000 must be in financial assets, not property. The total minimum outlay under the rental route is approximately €122,000 in contributions and fees plus €70,000 in rent over 5 years plus the €2,000 charity donation, making the rental route significantly more accessible than the property purchase route for those with sufficient assets but limited capital for an outright purchase. What Malta PR gives you. Malta is an EU member state, which means Malta PR gives you the right to live and work in Malta indefinitely. Malta PR does not automatically give you the right to live in other EU countries. For that, you need either citizenship, available after 7 years in Malta, or the separate EU long-term resident status, available after 5 years. However, as a Malta PR holder, you can travel freely within the Schengen area on short stays. Family members including spouse, dependent children, and dependent parents of both the main applicant and spouse can be included in the application. The honest trade-offs. Malta PR through the MPRP does not require you to actually live in Malta, which is the key distinction from pathways like the German Blue Card or Portugal D7. This makes it attractive for investors who want the legal status without the requirement of physically relocating. However, if your ultimate goal is EU citizenship, you will eventually need to spend significant time in Malta to satisfy residency requirements for naturalization. The total investment required, while lower than some other investor programs, is still substantial and beyond the reach of most individual applicants without significant capital reserves. Pathway 4, Ireland Critical Skills Employment Permit. Ireland sits just outside the standard EU residency framework in one important way. It is not part of the Schengen area, which means Irish PR does not give you the same freedom of movement across continental Europe that other EU PR statuses do. However, Ireland offers something that no other EU country can match, the fastest work-based pathway to long-term residency of any EU member state. Under Ireland's Critical Skills Employment Permit system, you can apply for long-term residence, Ireland's equivalent of permanent residency, after just 2 years of continuous employment under the permit. That is 24 months from your first day of legal employment to a permanent right of residency. No other EU country matches this for work-based applicants without investment. The requirements. The Critical Skills Employment Permit requires a job offer from an Irish employer in a qualifying occupation, which covers a broad range of professions across technology, healthcare, engineering, financial services, and other skilled sectors, with a minimum salary of €32,000 per year for certain high-demand roles, or €64,000 per year for roles not on the critical skills list. Your employer must have a current tax clearance certificate and must be registered with the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment. The process. The employer applies for the permit on your behalf through the Employment Permits online system. Once approved, typically within 4 to 6 weeks, you apply for an Irish entry visa if required for your nationality. Upon arrival in Ireland, you register with the Garda National Immigration Bureau, the GNIB, to receive your Irish Residence Permit card, which confirms your right to live and work in Ireland. After 2 continuous years of employment under the Critical Skills Permit, you apply for Stamp 4 long-term residence, which is Ireland's version of permanent residency. Stamp 4 gives you the right to live and work in Ireland without employer sponsorship, access to public services on the same basis as Irish citizens, and eligibility to apply for Irish citizenship after 5 years of continuous residence, making the total timeline from first arrival to Irish passport approximately 5 years. The honest trade-offs. Ireland is not in the Schengen area. This means that as an Irish PR holder, you are not entitled to live or work in France, Germany, Portugal, or any other Schengen country under your Irish status. You are specifically a resident of Ireland. However, Irish citizenship, which becomes accessible after 5 years, is an EU passport, and Irish citizens have full EU freedom of movement rights like every other EU citizen. So Ireland is a 5-year pathway to full EU citizenship, not an indefinite Irish-only permanent status. Pathway 5. The standard 5-year route. Not everyone has a highly skilled job offer, passive income, or investment capital. And for those people, the standard route, 5 years of continuous legal residence under any qualifying permit, remains a completely viable, if longer, pathway to EU permanent residency. Let me walk through how this works practically. In most EU countries, any form of legal residence, work permit, student visa transitioning to work, family reunification, or business permit, can count toward the 5-year continuous residency requirement for PR. The key word is continuous. You cannot leave the country for extended periods and expect the clock to keep running. Most EU countries define continuous as not being absent from the country for more than 6 consecutive months or more than 10 months total across the 5-year period, though this varies by country and you should verify the specific rules for wherever you are residing. The most practical version of this pathway for people without a specific professional qualification or passive income source is through entrepreneurship. Several EU countries, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, and Portugal among others, allow residence permits on the basis of running a genuine business. If the business actually operates, generates income, and you pay taxes and spend time in the country, you can apply for PR after 5 years. Fictitious or non-operating business registrations are scrutinized heavily and will not meet the requirements for PR or extension. Another increasingly popular version of this pathway is through education, obtaining a student visa, completing studies in an EU country, transitioning to a job seeker or work visa after graduation, and building toward 5 years of combined legal residence. Several EU countries, Germany, the Netherlands, France, and others, have specific post-study work authorization pathways that allow graduates from EU institutions to extend their residence while seeking employment, with time spent as students counting toward EU long-term resident status in some cases. The standard 5-year route requires patience and genuine commitment to the country you are living in. But for people who are genuinely motivated to build a life in Europe and willing to invest the time, it is a completely achievable pathway that does not require a specific professional level or significant capital. Now that you understand the 5 core pathways, let me give you a decision framework for choosing which country to target, because the country you choose is just as important as the pathway you use. If you have a high-skilled job offer and want the fastest possible PR, choose Germany. The EU Blue Card at 21 months with B1 German is simply the fastest legitimate PR pathway available in any EU country for skilled professionals. The government fees are the lowest of any major economy. The salary is strong. And German permanent residency opens the door to EU citizenship in 5 to 8 years. The learning investment in German pays dividends for decades. If you work remotely or have passive income and want the easiest entry, choose Portugal. The D7 visa's low income threshold, straightforward application process, high quality of life, warm climate, and English friendliness make it consistently the most recommended EU residency program for remote workers, freelancers, retirees, and passive income earners. The 5-year pathway to citizenship is clear and well established, even with the 2026 changes to note. If you have investment capital and want the fastest direct PR, choose Malta. 6 months from application to permanent residency status is simply unmatched. The MPRP is expensive by the standards of individual applicants but competitive by the standards of investment immigration globally. If you want the fastest work-based route without learning a new language, choose Ireland. 2 years to long-term residency under the Critical Skills Permit, in an English-speaking country with a dynamic tech and pharmaceutical economy, is a compelling combination. The non-Schengen limitation is a real trade-off, but Irish citizenship after 5 years gives you full EU rights. If you are a student, entrepreneur, or patient long-term planner, choose based on quality of life and sector fit. For the standard 5-year route, the right country is the one where you genuinely want to live, where your industry has demand, and where the cost of living suits your income. The Czech Republic, Poland, Portugal, and Germany all have strong ecosystems for entrepreneurs and skilled workers. Spain, Portugal, and Greece are popular for quality of life. The Netherlands, Sweden, and Denmark attract technology professionals. Let the specifics of your life goals drive the country choice rather than choosing purely on the basis of immigration ease. Before I close out, I want to cover the most common mistakes people make when pursuing EU permanent residency, because these mistakes cost people months, sometimes years. Mistake 1. Underestimating the physical presence requirements. EU residency is not a status you can collect and then ignore. Most pathways require you to spend a minimum number of days per year in your host country, and extended absences reset or pause your clock toward PR. Know the specific rules for your country and path from day 1 and plan your travel accordingly. Mistake 2. Not starting degree recognition early enough. For work-based routes, particularly the German Blue Card, degree recognition can take 2 to 3 months and cannot happen in parallel with your visa application. It needs to happen before. Starting it the moment you decide to pursue the German route saves significant time. Mistake 3. Choosing a country based on immigration ease alone without considering livability. EU permanent residency requires you to actually live somewhere for years. If you choose a country purely because it has the easiest paperwork and then find you cannot build a real life there, your motivation to stay and meet the residency requirements will collapse. Choose a country where you genuinely want to be. Mistake 4. Having gaps in legal status. Continuous residency means no gaps. If your residence permit expires and you do not renew it in time, or if you are between statuses, your clock toward PR can be interrupted. Always begin renewal applications early, never wait until expiry. Mistake 5. Not consulting an immigration attorney for your specific situation. General information, including everything in this video, gives you the framework. Your specific circumstances, your nationality, your relationship to your employer, your specific degree, your family situation, all of these details matter and can affect the pathway and timeline significantly. A qualified immigration attorney in your target country is an investment that pays for itself. Let me bring this back to where we started. The ability to live permanently, legally, freely, and without the constant anxiety of renewal and dependence, somewhere in one of the world's most developed, stable, and opportunity-rich regions is genuinely more accessible in 2026 than most people realize. The German Blue Card is getting skilled professionals to permanent residency in 21 months. Portugal's D7 is giving remote workers a clear 5-year pathway on €870 a month. Malta is giving investors permanent status in 6 months. Ireland is giving critical skills workers PR in 2 years. And for the patient, disciplined, long-term planner, the 5-year route through any qualifying legal status is always there. The question is not whether these pathways are real. They are. The question is whether you are willing to do the work, the job hunting, the degree recognition, the language learning, the financial preparation, the genuine commitment to building a life somewhere new, that makes them real for you specifically. If this video gave you a clearer picture of how EU permanent residency actually works and which pathway might fit your life, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who has been thinking about this. Subscribe for more global mobility content covering pathways, visa processes, and strategic guides for people who want to move and build internationally. And drop a comment telling me which pathway you are most interested in and why. I read every single one. If you need professional guidance on any of these pathways specifically, work with a qualified immigration attorney in your target country. The information in this video is your foundation. A professional who knows your case is your structure. Put both together and Europe becomes genuinely achievable. See you in the next video.